The biggest part of any television show is arguably its finale. Ideally, it's the bow that ties everything together, the last thing that the audience is left with and the last time the audience gets to enter that world. It can either be something incredibly special or something incredibly disappointing, and some shows don't even get the luxury of choosing when they are ending, leaving a conclusion that's just overall unsatisfying. But the weirdest phenomenon, I think, is when a show ends quietly, not with a bang but with a whimper. It just seems inappropriate for what a finale really is, and it's something that happens quite a lot on Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Roundtable, I'm Nemo, and guys, how come you don't really hear about Cartoon Network finales? Now, I know you might be yelling at your computer screen right now, because yes, Cartoon Network has done an incredible job of advertising a lot of its finales. In fact, just recently, Adventure Time's finale was a huge event that a lot of people watched. It was definitely acknowledged by the network. However, for every Adventure Time, there's a Clarence that just quietly goes away one day, leaving you to just sit on your couch and be like, hey, is Clarence still on? And then you Google it on your phone, you're like, oh my god, Clarence ended? When did Clarence end? And you know, that whole conversation. To really answer why this is happening, we have to go back to the beginning of the network.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the world's first and only Cartoon Network.
Okay, wait, maybe not that far, maybe a little bit farther ahead. Back in the good old days of Cartoon Network in the early 2000s, I remember cartoon finales being a huge deal. Shows like Kids Next Door or even Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends would have giant finales, usually hyped up by like a week-long marathon or something like that. These felt like true final episodes, and they were built up as a finale. They definitely did not disappoint. Sure, not every single show was given the red carpet treatment, but most shows were, and when a show ended, you knew what was happening. Even Chowder got a pretty big finale, even though it was super weird and kind of disappointing. I won't touch on that. But again, it was a similar situation. Shows like Flapjack I don't remember ever ending, and then one day I checked back in to see that it had one of the most batshit crazy endings I'd ever seen. But the point still stands that in the past with Cartoon Network, they always made sure to take time with their finales, and they let people know when a show was ending, for the most part. If you flash forward to now, I feel like that almost never happens. Sure, if a show is big enough, the finale is a huge deal. Take just recently, like I said, Adventure Time's finale, or even regular show's finale. I mean, regular show got like a whole final season, okay? That was crazy. But for a lot of other shows, they just were not seeing this treatment. I want to touch on the biggest offender in this case, The Amazing World of Gumball. Gumball is a Cartoon Network staple and a massive cartoon with a huge fan base. It's one of those shows that managed to get better with time instead of getting worse, and actually found a pretty huge audience in its later seasons, becoming a Cartoon Network staple for sure. But when it came to the finale, they did not advertise it at all. We got some BS cliffhanger ending that might not be the ending, it might be the ending, but it doesn't matter. Cartoon Network didn't let us know. There wasn't some big countdown. They just aired this. They just dumped these episodes on the network and aired it casually without any warning at all. We had to learn from Twitter that this was the ending of the series. This sucks. Gumball deserved way better than this, and we all know it. But instead, this is the treatment that it got. They're spitting on it. They're spitting on it, I tell you. Hopefully they can get that weird movie that they're ambiguously teasing that probably won't happen. I don't know, the world is falling apart. But when we saw how dirty they did Gumball, it really made me realize that this is a bigger problem than just some shows quietly ending. Because yes, if a show is not that big and it doesn't hit that big of a market, it doesn't make that much sense to completely advertise and blow out a finale. An example of this would be Clarence, because although Clarence is an incredible show and had a huge audience, it definitely was not at the level that like regular show or Adventure Time ever hit. So having a casual ending kind of makes sense. I mean, I can't imagine a big ending for Clarence anyways. That show is just like slice of life. But it's becoming more and more apparent nowadays that if you want to keep up with a show and see if it's ending, you have to look on social media. More specifically, OKKO, which was an incredible show and was done a little bit dirty by the network in my opinion, but we're not going to spill the tea like that. Regardless, the show ended recently and had a pretty great finale. I'm not going to say the network didn't do anything to advertise it, because that's not true. Especially because the last two episode titles pretty much gave it away. But what I did see is the incredible amount of information that I got just from looking at Twitter, both from ENJQ tweeting and other people who worked on the show tweeting. It seems like that's the main way people communicate that a show is ending now, and almost insultingly, the schedules. It's almost like if you want to know how to keep up with your favorite show and when to keep up with when it's ending, you have to just follow the creator on Twitter and see what they tell you. It's like some exclusive club. You have to know somebody to get in. Now, obviously, I'm exaggerating a little bit. It's not that bad, but it's definitely a trend that you can see. So my point point with all of this is that Cartoon Network does not do a great job currently of advertising when its shows are ending, or conveying any information about the show's fate at all. You could argue that big shows like Adventure Time got a finale, but in the same way, other big shows like Gumball just ended on a whimper for no good reason. So why does this happen? Why is there such a lack of advertising for finales of Cartoon Network shows? Well, to answer that question, we have to face a grim reality. Cue the music so that it's sadder now. I'm just about to be sad real quick. Guys, the truth is television as a medium is dying. Sure, streaming is on the rise, but even that is an entirely different, confusing beast. TV as a medium isn't going away, but it's overall in a huge period of change, and things have never been more uncertain. If you take a look at the industry right now, it's apparent that everyone's scrambling to figure out how to adapt and change in these new times, Cartoon Network included. You can take a look just about anywhere and you'll get the hint that no one's really watching cable the way they used to, and this is the same exact way for finales. Picture with me for a second that you're a television executive. Your name's like Daryl or something. Hi Daryl. Your goal is to get kids to continue watching the shows that you put on air. Now obviously if you advertise to a huge extent that that show is ending, it's over, the finale is coming, any dumb little kid's gonna be like, oh, I guess that show's over, I'll stop watching it. But, and this is the depressing part, if you never let them know that the show ended and you quietly kill it off and stop making new episodes, those reruns will continue airing forever and the kids will honestly be none the wiser. They'll just think that the show's still on. Again, not the average viewer, but we're dealing with a children's audience here, and those are the ones primarily watching these networks. So it seems like the networks have made the decision to just, for the most part, never let people know that a show is ending. If they do, then there's that risky chance that the kid might stop watching thinking that it's over, and they can't afford to lose any more eyes. It's already a pretty grim situation as it is. Cable relies heavily not on new shows, but on reruns, and the ability to play any show at any time. That's why serialized television formats were so taboo for such a long time. They wanted shows that you could play any episode of at any point and people could just dive right in and understand. However, if you end a show and you let the whole world know with a huge 1-week finale marathon, people will assume that there's no point in watching anymore, and honestly, some people probably would stop watching innately just because the show is over. Not everybody's always interested in reruns. If you think about it as an executive, it makes sense, but if you think about it as a fan of television and a fan of these shows, it's really depressing, because shows like Clarence just end up in this state of weird limbo. It's not the end of the world. I mean, it's like these shows all still got endings, and it's not so bad to the point where they literally got unsatisfying conclusions, but in a way I feel like an unsatisfying conclusion is at least something. Instead, these shows ending on a whimper are just kind of depressing to me. So there you have it. It's basically all down to rewatchability, but this rewatchability doesn't stop at just cable television airings, because that's not all Cartoon Network is anymore. They also have a super successful app and a lot of people watch online, but imagine if you made a big deal out of the fact that a show ended. All of a sudden, a kid logging into the Cartoon Network app would be cycling through shows to watch, they'd come across the show that they just heard ended, and they might be like, oh, well, I'll stop checking there, that show's over. All of a sudden, no one's watching that show, not even on the app, and you're losing even more viewers. Again, I'm taking a lot of liberties here, assuming stuff, but this is just what makes sense to me, and it's kind of explaining the situation a little bit better. It all ultimately boils down to the same sentiment. Making a big deal out of a show's finale might inadvertently kill its rewatchability. That's still not gonna stop the network, especially with shows like Adventure Time and Regular Show, and even going as far back as Foster's. And there's even more shows I can imagine them giving a giant finale to, say like Steven Universe. We're not dealing with some evil company here, okay? Cartoon Network is trying to do the right thing, and I totally understand where they're coming from. It's just important to remember that this television market is ever shifting and ever changing, and they're gonna always have to scramble to keep up with it. It seems like this is just a byproduct of that. So if you're ever sitting and wondering what happened to that one show, you find out it ends and you're surprised you didn't even hear about it, it's not that the network hates your show, it's that everything is dying slowly, and there's no way to stop it, and everything seems really scary, and the world is just a giant garbage fire, and there's global warming also. Why are we even watching TV when we gotta save the turtles, or what are we doing? I'm just gonna watch YouTube. But as always, I want to know what you guys think about all of this. Did you ever wonder about finales? Did you not? Did you know about this? Did you not even think about this? Let us know in those comments down below, or tweet to us at Roundtable Vids or me at @StretcherNemo. If you want to consider helping out the Roundtable, you could become a member of the channel or support us on Patreon and get exclusive access to scripts and avatars. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share it, and subscribe to the Roundtable to stay in the loop with all things animation. As always, I'm Nemo, this is a cartoon discussion video, and I will see you next time. Peace.